And hello again. This is another quick tutorial on some of the new ways to work with Project Dog Waffle, Howler 9.0 at this time. What you're looking at here is a rendering in progress inside of PuppyRay. It's a total of 299 frames and I'm at 244, so almost done on this particular sequence. And once it's done, I will save it out as an AVI. In fact, I have a whole bunch of AVIs that I saved already, and here they are. Let's take a look at the first one. This one's serving as essentially the elevation map. It doesn't have any animation, but it's just saved out as an AVI. Then there is another one here which does already have an animation, in which I just moved the camera position to fly over it, looking down on that elevation. And it didn't have any elevation really yet. It didn't have any sort of extrusion or size along the z-axis. This one here does show that. And so we basically moved the camera down into position to look at it from the side, and it's still flat. But now we're going to then, as the next step, that's I think in this one here, extrude this to an elevation. So we see it still from the same original camera as it's being moved up to the top. And we can move the camera even higher. So there's all sorts of different things. I'm basically showing here what the effect is of some of these parameters. This one here I think is on the fog. If you move the fog closer, actually not quite yet. This one here is really just like starting to fly in. Next one here is moving the fog distance, and it's either very close or very far away. And what it does is it automatically replicates the terrain, so it tiles it as much as needed before it disappears in the fog. And so that's great. It's really an endless terrain. It's a terrain that keeps tiling endlessly until it's just no longer visible because of the fog. And if you make the terrain, if you make that elevation map seamless, it's great because it really looks like there is just an endless supply of landscape behind it. And here's the last one so far. And what I'm doing at this time here, I didn't have the skylight enabled, and now I'm enabling it, and you start seeing a little bit of what do we call it? Not skylight, but the environment is basically contributing. The sky is contributing to some lighting effect here, in addition to the light source itself. And then so the next one that's currently running here is we're taking that up another notch, which is to actually lower the extrusion level some more and bring it back down to a little bit more of a regular cityscape, not too much of a futuristic, very high skyscraper scape. And then we'll actually move the light source around too. And in this one here, we have the light source already moved somewhere around here where it's very bright, and you start seeing some of the long shadows being cast away from that point. That's an example of where you might want to add some post work later on to perhaps insert something like a bright shiny light, with the lens flares, animated lens flare, and to make it look like there is some sort of a very bright sun or a shiny object causing that illumination on this local area. I'll do a lot of other things to this, though. I'll be, once I kind of settle down on a particular area with the camera, I'll be staying there and just changing some of the parameters. I'm thinking right now we can see the horizon pretty far away because the fog is set to go really far. And one thing I want to do is also show if you zoom into that. So if you change the angular aperture of the lens, the focal distance, if you want, I mean they're tied together. If you change that, this is a parameter here, the zoom parameter. So probably in the next sequence, once this one is done, I'll save it, and in the next sequence I'll be changing the zoom parameter to go to a very high value, like 20 or 50. And that will be a very strong telephoto lens effect. So you'll only see a small portion like here, but you'll see that very big and strongly magnified. That's something that you can use if you want to do some banners, some background images that look like a telephoto lens was taking that, so you don't have this big, strong perspective distortion that you see here in the foreground. Let's see some other parameters I'll be playing with. Again, the fog, we've already seen a little bit. I might do some more. The intensity of the light source also versus the skylight. And then there is also the pre-filter. Right now I have it crisp at 0, so every object is as sharp as it can be. But we can increase the pre-filter to make it look like it's melting, or at least sort of softening the elevation, the terrain. There are some other parameters that we can experiment with, and we'll just have fun with this and experiment with it a little bit. One thing I want to also show you is how to make it so that when you render one sequence and then you render another one, it looks like the two are continuing or connected. In other words, normally when you do a single puppy ray animation sequence, let's say over 500 frames, you don't care really what's happening afterwards. You do that for itself and there is no connection with others. But in this case, I'm actually rendering a sequence of different scenarios, and every time I'm done with one scenario, that last frame, the position of the last frame is where I want to start for the next scenario. So when I'm done with this one, I'm going to save this as an AVI. This one has about 300 frames. And then I'm going to reset it to that original grayscale elevation map. And when I get back into the puppy ray, it will still remember what was the most recent set of parameters that were used. That's unless I quit the program. If I exit the program, it won't have saved those parameters. But as long as the program is still in memory, I can go back into puppy ray, and it will still have the current path of the animation, the keyframes. I can clear the keyframe, but I want to do that on the last frame. So I want to set my position, my time marker on the last frame, and then clear the keyframes, so that that's also my position now all along the timeline, and I can start from that position. From then on, I'll be able to go and do whatever I want to do next. So let's wait for this animation to be done. It just finished. Perfect timing. Look at that. What I'll do is, first of all, I'll just check through that quickly here. I can see the animation scrub bar, and I can scrub through the animation now, both in the preview, but also showing me the frames I currently have there because they were just rendered. And you can see that towards the end, I was moving the light source. It came initially in the lower right of the camera, and there it is, very close, and then you see the shadows turning around, and it's farther away now. Alright, so I want to save this out as an AVI. Let's go quit the puppy ray tool and go to animation and save as AVI. And as usual, I will just increase the name of the file. Right now is my AVI F, because I started with A and then B and then C, and so I'll just keep adding, going through the whole alphabet. So I have a sequence of, I mean, you could have numbered them 0, 1, 0, 2. After F, oh God, what's after F? E, F, G, there you go. And let's go save it and make sure it's frames per second the way you want it. 30 frames per second in my case. I'm gonna use my favorite codec, the Lagerif lossless codec, which is free. It's very fast, it's nicely compressed, small file size, and yet it is lossless, so it's a great working format as well if you need to reopen it. Alright, so here we save this out now as an AVI. We can go and check it out. Here is the new one, there it is. This one we just saved, right? So there it is. Alright, so what we want to do now is go back to the original frame sequence that we had. Now this one here is just a single static image, right? This is what you get when you do the image store, image copy. You get a static image. You could restore that and then recreate the animation. I don't want to do that. I want to go a little bit faster. And in fact, one trick for that is you can go to the timeline, which is here, and in the timeline, if you had done some sort of a render of anything before, even something that doesn't really change anything, you can do an undo, one level of undo. Well, I can keep using that to go back to that. Right, so I click undo, and it's undoing this and restoring the image sequence that I had before I applied that entire rendering. Actually, no, not before I applied the puppy ray rendering. It's before I applied the timeline editor rendering. But what I did intentionally is actually apply something that didn't change anything. So that way I get a backup copy I can easily restore to. And so now we have this, and again, it doesn't change anything here. This one is not an animated sequence yet. But what I want to do now is go back into puppy ray, transform puppy ray, and it still remembers the parameters I had, including the whole animation sequence there. I'm going to go to the last frame. That's where the animation ended, the prior one I just finished. And then I'm going to go here and clear the keys. There are several keys. Let me not clear it yet. You can see here you can actually navigate to the earlier keys. Click with that. That's to go to advance or the next keyframe. And what you want to do is just go to the last one. Right? When you're at the last one, then you can clear the keys, and it will clear the keys of the prior animation camera motion or whatever the parameters were that were animated. Then you go back to this and make sure you scrub to the first one. You see now it's no longer changing. There are no more keys in between. They're all gone. And so what I'm going to do is now start with this. Click plus to create a key at that same position. That way you know you're going to have a continuity from the prior clip I just saved out to this clip I'm about to render. And so what I'm going to do here is still keep moving a little bit, right? It's nice to have a little bit of continuity in the way that the camera moves. So you got to figure out, because the view may already be rotated, it's not necessarily moving the camera forward. If you move the mouse up or down, it might need to go a slightly different path. What I'm going to do is go a little bit sideways, and by the way, I need to move to a different keyframe now for that. So that's the initial position is here. So let's make sure we move a little bit to the side, kind of this way. I want to look along this long alley, something like this, and then also a little bit forward. There you go. Okay, and that's going to be the starting point, and we might want to move the camera tilted up a little bit so we actually see this really kind of in the middle of the image. Let's see if we can move this somewhere around here. So this point, this vanishing point of this perspective view is going to be kind of close to the center. We can always adjust it later, but we'll actually start zooming into that. So let's go keyframe that, create a keyframe, go up to the next position. Here's where we're now going to do the zoom to actually see into that corridor. So for that we'll need to change the zoom value here. This one is not a slider, but we can easily change the numeric value. Let's put 4. That's good. Let's put even higher value. Let's put 7, and even higher. Let's put 22. Whoa, that's a big value. That's a high value. And then we still are over here on the interactive angle. We can adjust that a little bit, and let's put it around here. All right. So that's an interesting angle and view. Let's go save that, and now we'll go move the camera a little bit to the side. So let's go, and that would be this one, and see if I remember. Yeah, I need to move downwards for this one, just to have some sort of an idea of what it looks like if we are zoomed in very strongly. All right, and then we might want to keyframe that, and then perhaps one more, which is towards the end here, and sort of move down. Let's see, move the camera down. That was an interesting one. It looked a little bit like a church roof there. This one here in the front. Let's keep that one there. All right, so we might perhaps want to move the angle a little bit, like so. Keep in mind that this window here doesn't have the same aspect ratio necessarily than what you have here on the right side for your final render. So it might actually have more sky. And if you really want to cut the sky off here, you'll want to perhaps even go down a little bit. All right, so let's go and keep that last keyframe. So now we have keyframes like this. We go in animation from here. You see how the camera angle changes, and then we start zooming in, and we have a very strong angular view. We'll do the next one. After that, we'll do one where it's going the opposite, where we turn back into a very strong angle. So right now we have a zoom. We'll go even stronger. Let's go 55. Let's see what that does. Oh my god, that's so strong. Look at that. Let's go move it up a little bit. I still want to see the corridor. There it is. Okay, now this is a preview. It's very grainy. It's going to be better when we do the high quality render. I'm not doing the final render. You might want to do that if you absolutely need this to be the best quality. In fact, even beyond final render, where days or hours would seem like days, it's gonna take really a long time. But so much even more improved in the quality. I'm going to just render it at high quality. That's good enough for my needs here, just to demonstrate the technique and to bring the point across. The next thing I'll do is go save that, right? I mean, so let's go keyframe that, and pretty much ready to go. Let's go and animate this entire sequence. All right, so now we have another sequence being rendered, and that will take probably about 10-15 minutes. Hard to say. Let's see if we can time how long it takes for one frame here. Of course, each frame is not going to take the exact same amount of time. On average, about roughly the same, but if you change the position, the distance of the fog, for instance, there's going to be significantly more time needed if the fog is very far away, because there's so much more detail that it needs to render. Okay, if you have the fog very up close, it's not going to take that long, and it's going to render it faster. Still, here we have what, about 3 or 4 seconds per frame. Let's see, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. Those were fast Mississippis, but about 5 seconds or so for for one frame, and there's about 300 frames. So 300 times 5 seconds, that's 1500 seconds. 1500 seconds is what it's going to take. That's a little bit more than what, 20 minutes. 60 seconds is 1 minute. Yeah, if you had only 1200 seconds, it would be exactly 20 minutes. So here we'll have probably about 25. And that's basically where we want to do some other work, do some other stuff, check email, grab coffee, make some lunch, and come back and move on to the next step. So you can see I've been working on this for a little while, not a very long time frame. I started this morning at about, I think at about 7 o'clock. It's now about 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:20, and every half hour or so I complete one more of these and continue on to the next one. So what you'll see is in the end an animation that looks like a very long animation, because each step is 300 seconds long. Each segment is 300 seconds long, and they'll be contiguously chained together, and it will hardly look like there's any sort of cut or transition, because the last frame of any segment is the same as the first frame of the next segment, and so I'll be able to adjust them and connect them together quite nicely. All right, so that's just an inside look at some of the techniques we can use to animate some of the parameters and play with Puppy Ray some more. And of course, there's more that we want to do afterwards, and I'll start also doing some mirroring, so that the images that are being rendered will then also be mirrored. I don't know yet if I want to do that, enable that before, so that it's doing the mirror while Puppy Ray is rendering. It's probably better to just let it go and then do the mirror later on. But you have to understand which part is being mirrored. If you want this, for instance, to look like you're flying through a cave, is it the bottom part that's replicated to the top, or is it the top part that's replicated to the bottom? Important to understand which one you're going to lose. So we'll experiment with that and create a whole sequence of things that look like we're inside a cave or some sort of an underwater scene as well. Lots of stuff we can do by doing some more post work to add a little bit of fluff to the water, to the atmosphere, to whatever it is we are recalling it. All right, thanks for watching, and enjoy.